Aloha, welcome to the Exposed Show. My name is Molly Willson, and I am here to expose you to information and new ideas on alternative ways of living. On this show, you'll hear from some pretty cool guests who talk about personal development, health and wellness, spirituality, and relationships. I hope to share with you valuable conversations that build perspective and support your personal journey towards a life of meaning and more. If you're here to evolve, these insightful interviews and self-reflection stories will inspire you to become more open-minded and accepting of the world we live in today. Make sure you subscribe to the show to stay up to date on what's being exposed. On today's show, I talk with Indy Mathewson, who is a private chef based in Honolulu, Hawaii. Indy is inspired to create bright, beautiful meals that bring joy and nourishment to people's life. From healing her own digestive ailment, Indy discovered that the quality of food she eats has a direct impact on her overall well-being. Since making this connection, Indy went on to receive her undergrad in Nutrition and Culinary Arts and has worked in restaurants, catering companies, and farmers markets throughout Seattle, Honolulu, and Austin, Texas to promote this message. She has developed a deep reverence for food that nourish our body. She works as a private chef, which involves connecting people back to food, promoting them with positive relationships with mealtimes, and offering creative, unique recipes. She is an advocate for consuming locally sourced organic foods to support local farming communities. Ultimately, Indy promotes ways of eating that heal the body and the relationship we have with food. In the show, we talk about what a quality diet means, what to do if you don't have access to these options, and simple ways to start incorporating more nutrient-dense foods into your diet. What I love about this conversation is that it goes beyond just food. We talk about how mindset and culture influence our daily consumptions that can bring us farther away from what our body truly needs. So, we stress and really love the message to go back to simple, local, and natural ways of living. It has such a profound healing experience for so many people, and I just love that this is a way of life that we're so passionate about. I really just love this conversation and believe that going back to nature is one of the best things that we can do to live a meaningful life and more. So, without further ado, let's get to this conversation and welcome on our guest, Indy Mathewson. Aloha and welcome, Indy. I am so excited to have you on the podcast today to talk all things plant-based, nutrition, and lifestyle that is really going to transform people's lives. I know from a personal perspective, plant-based eating and just paying attention to my diet has made some major impacts in my life. I know for you as well, sharing parts of your story and pieces of information that you've been through can and really does inspire people to be more open-minded to a plant-based diet and living holistically. So I welcome Indy on the show. She is here. She's a plant-based chef based out of Honolulu, Hawaii. Or excuse me, Oahu. You're in Oahu, Hawaii, and she's a lover of nature and here to inspire and educate people around living a balanced lifestyle. So before we jump into the real good stuff, I want to talk about what in your life are you currently like obsessed with? Is there something that like you're just, what's got your attention right now?
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Molly. It's such an honor to be on your podcast. Right now, I'd say I recently got more and more into foraging. And I love going hiking in my free time. It was something that started in a sense to help me mentally, just like escape staring at screens or like overthinking, and to just like be in touch with like the root of who we are, nature. And, like with the pandemic and everything, I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe the world is ending. I don't know what is going to happen, but I think it's such a valuable skill to have knowledge about like our surroundings and like the earth that we are in, and even just like specifically like microclimates of being in Honolulu, Hawaii. Yeah, so I've been really into learning more and more. Like I've always kind of been into it. My mom kind of inspired me with that, but learning more and more about like native Hawaiian plants and then edibles, and especially like invasive species that are up in the mountains or really anywhere. And then just understanding why they're there, what they do, and like what we can do to do our part in protecting our climate. So
Wow.
it's been interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I feel like for me, nature is always like the go-to. It's always the answer. Like tapping back into nature, the earth, spending time outside, outdoors. And, it's such a powerful mechanism for us to just be present. And then also I love that, give back to Mama Earth in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned Oahu. Okay. So you grew up here.
Yeah, I was born and raised. I didn't always live here though. So I left when I was about 21, and then I moved to Seattle, Washington. I was there for almost 4 years. And then I came back. I was here kind of like transient, trying to figure out like what I wanted to do. I didn't really feel like I was ready to root down here yet. And then I decided to kind of just pick up and go, and I left to Austin, Texas. And I just really honestly like wanted to put myself in a place that's far away that I'm super not familiar with, and to just like figure it out. Because when I moved to Seattle, I enrolled in school. I went to Bastyr in Kenmore, and so I kind of already had like a basis there where I was like, signed up for a situation versus like going to Austin and like figuring it out, because I've always like loved traveling and just like exploring, and I wanted to be inspired, and focusing specifically on like cooking and just learning different techniques. And then so I moved back here actually because the pandemic hit, and I didn't feel like I had really connected with that place. I loved it, and I'm super grateful for my time there. However, being away really made me appreciate Hawaii a lot more. And it was awesome to just kind of come back and already have my family and friends. And then I started my business. So I'm here.
Love it. Yeah, I think, family coming back home this last year has meant a lot for people. And, we do appreciate our surroundings. We do appreciate the relationships we have at home. And for you to recognize that in your time away is huge,
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you did mention that, like, obviously you grew up here. The land here, if you're not familiar with, if you're listening, not familiar, Hawaii is just rich. It's rich in nature. It's rich and lush in, things and gifts from the earth, and it's just beautiful. So, when you were growing up here, is that when the interests around food, what got you into nutrition? What got you to that point of being a chef?
Well, I was actually a super picky eater as a kid. I like would not touch vegetables. I like did not want to try any fruits. And then it was about like maybe like 10th grade in high school. I just started, being more in tune with my body, and I realized like, wow, I don't feel good eating hot Cheetos and Taco Bell every day. Like this is not this is not helping me. And then I remember like being in like a health class, and like not really paying attention to the class, but I was like flipping through the book, and like I went to the back of the textbook, and there was like a whole list about vitamins and like what they do in your body, and I thought that was really interesting. So then I still didn't really know what I wanted to do, and then I was kind of like, oh, maybe I'll go to school for nutrition. So I like just went to like KCC, the community college here, and tried some nutrition courses. I did some like internships at hospitals, but I was like not feeling the whole hospital vibe. And like I would deliver like food to patients, and like just see the food that was on the plate, and I was like, wow, how is this helping anyone? you know?
Yeah.
So I got away from that. All throughout school, I like worked in restaurants, and I learned a lot through that. And even like as a kid, my mom would like try to teach me like basic things as cooking, and like, I would make like top ramen, but I would like put like an egg in it, or like green onions, or like I would try to like spruce it up a little bit. So I was always like interested in like, how can I make things taste better, like whatever, just like because that's cool. Yeah, so then eventually like I kind of found a happy medium between nutrition and cooking, and even just like applying it to like like certain places that I worked at. I'd put things on the menu, and which was like an awesome step for me to like get something on the menu. But I'm like, it's like golden milk ice cream, because golden milk is turmeric is awesome for you. And I would like tell people about that, and it just always got me excited. So I like connecting people with their food, and that's what sparks me, is seeing people get excited about that, and the way that I get excited about it.
I love it. Yeah, you're definitely passionate about, I think it's the creating process. You're creative in the kitchen, you're creative with ingredients, you're creative in the sense of connecting, this is a creative way to connect with people. So yeah, it's definitely amazing when you can get into that creative flow, and then also be able to, live that way, make it weird, make it something that, is going to just help change people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's like also like the creative part of it is like, it's so important these days to just have some kind of outlet, or even just like finding a way to get that out, because I think that's what makes us human, is the creative aspect. So
yeah, no, definitely.
It's just so good for you. Yeah.
So, we won't have to go too long in a story about this, but I know you had mentioned having a health condition that drove you more into understanding nutrition and the way food interacts with our body. So was it that ultimately too that really helped build your appreciation for the way we eat?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think mentioning the thing about me being in high school and eating Taco Bell and hot Cheetos, I got like I remember going through like a stomach ulcer kind of thing and not really understanding it. And then eventually like I had really bad digestive issues. And that was like what really drove me, because, like, especially graduating from like high school and like being 18 and everyone's like partying and stuff, but like I could not like I would just like, even that young, like I would be affected for days. Like I was just like super uncomfortable, super bloated. I also like had some like hormonal issues with like thyroid. I was hypothyroid. So like my hair was falling out. I was like gaining weight. I didn't understand what was going on. And I was just trying to Google search, like healthy diets. And then it was just like, those aren't real healthy diets, because it's like protein bars and protein shakes and like non-organic foods. And, it's like, there's such a disconnect, especially back then. That was like 2010. So like, I think now people are a lot more aware of those kind of things, but just learning how to eat real food and even just changing my mindset about it. Cause I think there's such a vicious cycle with stress and diet issues, like you get stressed out about it. So then you eat a certain way, and then you get stressed out that you ate that way. And then it just keeps perpetuating, So that really inspired me mostly to get into that, for sure, for nutrition specifically.
Yeah, for nutrition, your health. And so, I know I have my own definition of plant-based eating, but can you share about what that looks like for, everyday life?
Yeah. So I'm not 100% plant-based. I would say I'm more of like an omnivore. And that's kind of like, I'm open to whatever anyone wants to eat, and I never would judge anyone for anything. But I think like I like to promote just like, there's a Michael Pollan quote that's like, eat food, not too much, mostly plants.
Yeah.
And so it's just like eating mostly vegetables and fruits, and just eating like real ingredients. I think that's like the main thing, is like, if you're eating food that's like your grandma would cook from scratch versus like a frozen meal. That's mostly what I like to promote, is and then also just like how it ties into everything else, like supporting the local economy, like supporting local farmers and small businesses, versus like shopping at Safeway, like no hate towards Safeway, but
No, for sure. Yeah.
I just think it's important to, like we are a reflection of what we eat. So if you're eating like good, nutritious, fresh food that's like, straight from the earth versus like coming off of a plane, you're going to vibrate a little higher, and it's going to reflect in who you are, your health, everything.
Mhm. Yeah. And what I find very interesting here, specifically in Hawaii, I mean, we live in the middle of the ocean. So to access like, to have more food that is natural, I mean, I don't understand how people don't eat that way more often. I know because you grew up here, and I see this in the culture also, not for any particular reason, aside from just part of their culture, just a lot of, musubis, so rice, spam. I mean, your basic like convenience foods. So, and we're seeing that in the clinical research as well, especially here in Hawaii or in places where we call them like desert, food deserts.
Yeah.
There's not enough availability, quote unquote, enough availability of these healthy foods. People don't have access to Whole Foods, maybe it's an hour, 2 hours away, or they can't walk down the street and get green juice from, the local farmer. So in cultures or situations like that, what would you suggest that people try first to start eating more plant-based, or how can we build more of, that into our diet?
Yeah, I mean, you make a really good point about the food deserts. And then also, like living in Hawaii, just because we are so remote, cost of living is so high. And, if you make under 90,000 a year, you're considered poverty level, which is most people I know, including me. So, and it's difficult, especially like if, the people that are in your life, family, different influences in your life aren't really thinking that way. And, like they're more about like convenience and don't ever consider that as like something to change. Then that is a little difficult. However, I think it's just what we're learning more and more as time goes on is that getting back to how humans used to live, and like here in Hawaii, like we have such a rich culture of so many different cultures, but like, Native Hawaiian culture, it's like eating that way is awesome. If you can, I feel like everyone kind of knows someone here that like, like especially with like baby luau's, like the first birthday is like everyone comes together and like makes luau's or like makes laulaus and stuff. And it's like, just it's such a rich culture. So I think getting back to like how we used to be, and even just if you can like start a small garden somehow, or like, even I have like a kind of a small garden, but I go on a walk and like there's just like mango trees with mangoes hanging off the side that like, that like those people let those mangoes drop.
Yeah.
And or like even just like knock on their door and be like, hey, I saw you have a lot of mangoes. You mind if I get some or something? And just like making connections based off of the food too. And I think that just making time for it and making the effort to want to change. Like if you're presented with some sort of ailment, like just going to the doctor recently and like, oh my gosh, I have to change my diet and feeling overwhelmed, but like really wanting to change, I think is a really good place to start, and just being open to change.
100% agree with that. Yeah, I think step number one is awareness, and then step number two is knowledge. Like once you have an awareness of what's going on, then you can be again willing to figure out and learn, okay, what is it that my body needs? How can I heal? How can I incorporate more of a simple and sustainable lifestyle? Yeah, I think that goes with not even just, food on our plate. That goes for life in general. We're always, over consuming the wrong information or things that actually don't make us feel good. So for you, like what has been top vegetables or plants or things that like make your dish or like make a meal for you? Because again, I want to at least put value to, why should we be eating these things? What's it doing for us, and what are they?
Yeah, that's a great question. Recently I've been like really inspired, with the foraging thing that I've been doing. A lot of trails, especially like back.
Can you tell people like what is foraging? Like people may not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Foraging is like basically finding food. So like food that is just growing naturally, and identifying it correctly, hopefully, and eating it. And it's free. It's 100% free, which is awesome. And, for the most part, like you're not really like, you take what you need, you don't go excessive and just let things go to waste. And it's just like respecting the earth too. Like, don't like chop down a tree just because you want some of it, or whatever. So with foraging, it's like that's been my main connection. But finding xoxo fern shoots, which are kind of like the fiddlehead ferns here. Those have been like really cool. And because I did a little bit of research on them, and the extract in it, or there's like some constituents in the actual plant itself that promotes like blood sugar balance, which diabetes is a huge issue here and in America in general. There's like a lot of fiber in it. It kind of, I don't know if you've ever had it before, the fern shoots, but it's kind of like has like a slimy consistency once you like cook them. Kind of like okra, but
it's okra.
Yeah. So it moves through you like that, which is always very good for you. Yeah, and they're very rich in omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, so good for brain health too. So I've been using those a lot in dishes. I also really like breadfruit. We call it ulu here. It's like a complex carbohydrate. They grow on trees and they're a fruit themselves. Like if you let them ripen, they'll get sweet, but I really like them when they're unripe and you can kind of cook them like a potato. But those are really rich in fiber. Also helps balance your blood sugar as well. I use those in like many different ways. Like you can bake with them, you can roast them. I just like steam them. You can make a mash with them. Like they're just like, I think that they're like way better than potatoes.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. And I use a lot when I cook for my clients, taro leaves, which we call them lao, which like literally translates to leaf. And those are awesome. I mean, like if you have to steam them for at least like 2.5 hours or so, because there's I think it's calcium oxalate or something, but it basically makes these like crystals get stuck in your throat. So you never want to eat them raw. Yeah, but they're super rich in iron, like basically every vitamin. They're just like super dark leafy greens, but they have an awesome flavor too. And I like I'll steam them and I'll like cook it with like a little bit of like ginger, onion, like coconut milk. Awesome flavor though. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love because when I was living on Maui, I lived on Maui before I came to Oahu, and there's a local organic cafe there. And I remember the one thing I ordered it off the menu and it came in a leaf wrap, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, do I eat it? Because you don't know, but like there's so many, such an abundance of like ways to eat natural foods that support your body in many, many ways. What are some other staples like that we need to have or should have in our kitchen to just like enhance our health?
I always like to start with a good quality oil. People will buy like vegetable oil, canola oil. I don't recommend that. I think that's like, because you need it for like mostly everything you cook. So like using avocado oil as like a high heat oil if you're going to roast something, or good quality olive oils for colder items. And then like even like coconut oil, I've used lard, like actually like small scale batch lard versus like buying like a big tub of like processed lard. But yeah, it's like if you think about anything that's produced in such a large quantity, like the quality is going to go down. So sourcing things, like even though it might be a little bit more pricey, like you can make it like last a lot longer if you just like don't use a lot of it. And finding ways to do that. So definitely good quality oil, and then good quality salts. and spices. Totally. Like I am a big promoter of spices. I like making lots of curries and different stews, and any of those fragrant spices are anti-inflammatory, and they're going to bring down any inflammation in your body, and they help with digestion. And like as far as like salt too, like using like a good quality sea salt with minerals in it, because that's like a great way to get some minerals in your diet. And then honestly, like if you can get like a CSA bag or something, like they're way more readily available nowadays, especially since the pandemic, because a lot of farms like kind of just like stop like selling so much to like straight to restaurants or like grocery stores, because a lot of it got shut down. So they made CSA boxes and like deliveries way more readily available. Like Farm Link is here. I get like a CSA bag once in a while from my friends from Let's Grow Farms. It's like 20-30 bucks a week, and you can like find so many ways to like use all these different things, and it's like a good way to learn too about like what's in season, and like experimenting about like with the things that you got, like how can I use this watermelon radish, or how can I use these turnips or something. Like it'll get the gears going and probably get you inspired to do those kind of things.
Yeah, no, definitely. New ingredients always like puts in that like, intention to try something new and be creative. I love, and I know over the pandemic too, a lot of people started getting the boxes of meals. So like apron, purple carrots one, HelloFresh, all of these other new ways to eat foods. And I remember going home because my mom got them, and she's like, "Oh, we got a Blue Apron meal. Let's check it out." And I'm looking at some of the things. I'm like, I don't even know how to print it. Well, what is this? But you research, you experiment, and you welcome in like a new ingredient on your palate, and you just, the dish itself is like amazing. And so I think it's awesome that you do that in your work as a plant-based chef. I mean, that's just what that whole thing is, coming up with these awesome ways to eat different foods. So I want to ask then about being a plant-based chef. Like, what does that look like? What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm a private chef.
Okay.
I've always like, I've been doing that for maybe, gosh, now it's been like almost 6 years on and off. I've always like had like a full-time restaurant job, and then I would kind of do it on the side. But then this past October, I finally decided to make it a legit LLC. And I use my nutrition background, and I work with the client based off of like their health goals, or a certain ailment that's going on, or if in general, like they're just busy people and they want to eat better, they want to eat home cooked foods. So I work with them, and then I'd work with whatever kind of flavors they like. Like some people don't like spicy, some people like don't like certain things like cilantro or whatever. So I tailor a specific menu towards them and help them get to their goals. And a lot of it is kind of what I've been mentioning, is like just cooking from scratch, using a lot of fresh ingredients, local ingredients, good quality and sustainably sourced meats as well, and fish, seafood, all of that. But yeah, like it's mostly like what I've found in my work is that I help people get connected to their food. A lot of people, like, they kind of get stuck into a cycle with work and life, and will tend to eat like the same things every day. And me being in their life has been able to like show them new ways to like eat at home. And it even like people have been inspired to like make things based off of something that I made for them. So that's mostly what I do, is like connecting people. But I also do catering, and then some nutrition consulting on the side as well.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I have to say, hop on your Instagram and I'm like, what's for dinner? Let's see what's going on. Amazing pictures, amazing recipes. And, it inspires me also to stay focused and honor the plants and honor food, and again, develop that relationship. Yeah. So I want to know any current projects you're working on, any other things that, is coming up for you.
I actually want to get an ebook going. So I've been kind of collecting my recipes. It's kind of interesting because I don't ever use recipes. Like if I look up something that I'm making for the first time, I'll use a recipe as a guideline, but I'm like, little bit more garlic or a little bit more something, like, oh, I'm gonna add some greens to this. So I have always like switched things up. So it's been interesting, like trying to measure things and write things down. But that's kind of what I have going is potentially an ebook, my recipes.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've got to get your recipes out there for people because it is, such a way to connect. And what would you say for people who are in some of those, again, may not have the abundance of plants and vegetables and nature around them? What were some things that they can do to start eating more plant-based?
If anything, it's like you could support smaller businesses and restaurants, if that's something, like if cooking completely intimidates you, like that's totally fine, like a lot of people it does. But even just like, like looking up in your area, like a place that like makes like healthier food or supports local farms, and that's way more like common nowadays versus before, especially in major cities. So that's like a good place to start. And like for me, like I've learned a lot through just like social media and podcasts and documentaries. There's a lot of like bunk information out there, you could say, like, because you never know who's saying what, but I think it's good to get a lot of different perspectives. And there's also like different ways to get out there, like physically too. Like a lot of farms will have like work days where you just go for like a few hours and like dig in the dirt a little bit, and they give you like a box of groceries after for free because they're like, thank you so much for helping us, we don't like weeding, so thank you. Like if you'd ever like want to do something like that, that's a really good way to get involved and to learn and meet people in that same realm.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, it really is a mindset thing, but also developing relationships in a community with people who support that. When we're today in offices or jobs or relationships that don't necessarily have those types of things into their diet, it can be hard to make that transition. So yeah, I love that. Getting involved, connecting with the community, giving back. And so for someone who, wants to heal their body at a deeper level, where would you start with that?
Well, I always suggest for people to go to naturopathic doctors, or because I mean that's going to be a very reliable source and someone who's going to look at the whole picture versus, an allopathic physician, and there's nothing wrong with allopathic medicine or Western medicine. I think there's like a good balance that you could get with the two, but I think it's very important to at least get like a holistic perspective, or at least like with Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine, because they're such ancient practices, they're going to look at everything in your life, versus like, oh, you have this symptom, we're going to treat it with this prescription, instead it's like, oh, like maybe stress is causing that, what's causing your stress, and like addressing like the root cause. So I think that's really important, but also just like moving your body and like getting yourself like in that world of people that are going through the same thing or that are interested in the same thing. Like I love going to yoga, and like I only started that because I had scoliosis when I was a kid, and I was like, wow, like, my spine is straight now, thankfully, mostly straight, but but yeah, I think it's just like, if you, like we were saying before, like if you really want to change something, you'll find a way. And if you have something like a relationship or a job or something that's not supporting you in the way that you want to change to be better, then maybe it's best to cut those things out and move forward, because no matter what, like when it comes down to it, we just have ourselves, and you got to do what's best for you. And there's always a way. That's what I've learned in my life.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Starting at a more holistic level can, that's going to give you the longevity of health, longevity of healing, and, not just these instant gratifications or instant fixes for something you're working through. How important is or eating organic? Because that, I know, because I also study this and do my own do my best to eat mostly organic. But I think because, some people may just not have the understanding like of the impacts eating conventional food can have on your well-being, and maybe even price point for some of those. How important is it to, would you say, to prioritize organic?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So with like organic foods, I think most people that are listening to this are kind of aware of the fact of like pesticides are not good for us. Obviously, pesticides are killing bugs or preventing some sort of disease in the plant and reflects that in our DNA and in our bodies. So anything that's like extra with like, as far as like, you're adding to the plant itself, the vegetable, like that's not going to be good for you. And there's lots of research on that, especially recently with like, GMOs are also kind of a interesting subject too, because they can either go good or bad. But with like money and stuff, like, obviously organic foods are going to be a higher price point. So I always like to follow just like the dirty dozen list. There's some fruits and vegetables and herbs and whatnot that tend to have more pesticides, or that's going to be translated directly into your body, and like also thinking about like lemons, like if you buy a lemon and you're using the peel of it, maybe just buy an organic one if you can. And even with like EBT and food stamps, like you can use those at the farmer's market, and you can also buy organic foods with that. So I think that they are accessible, and you just have to like want to, buy organic and support that. The more you buy organic, obviously, like the more it's supporting the movement. So nowadays, I feel like organic foods are way more prevalent in every grocery store. And most small scale farms just automatically use organic practices just because it's cheaper. Like no one wants to buy like thousands of dollars worth of pesticides. They'd rather just find a way to make the food grow better in a natural way without having to spend money. Because like a lot of those big time companies get the USDA certified organic and label or whatever, and that costs like hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get. So I think just like knowing where your food comes from is a good start to get organic food.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree there too, 100% especially with the labeling. I know, it costs a lot for them to even get that organic label, and long time, because there's years of turnover that you need to do with the land to make sure and ensure that it's like pesticide, herbicide free and organic. So I know, establishing that relationship with the local farmer, asking if it's organic, having that conversation around what is it in their food, is a great option for people who, again, maybe not can make that purchase right at the grocery store. And then the other thing,
and I think,
oh, go ahead.
I think it, sorry, I think, like with like all of the organic foods and like, people eating pesticides for so long, there's such a big boost in food allergies. And so like, if you think about it, like you're eating the food, you're eating the pesticides going straight into your gut. And there's been some research lately about like leaky gut and, just like destroying that layer in your intestines, and how that is like a root to a lot of food allergies and helping people with like skin issues and autoimmune disorders. And that's, I think like now people are more and more waking up and avoiding those things because of that.
Yeah, no, for sure. What I want to say earlier, going back to the dirty dozen, I mean, eating foods or choosing those produce that, are on the dirty dozen list, that are, make sure you're choosing them organic. And I was just going to suggest to people to look that up on the World Health Organization. Is that right? Or the Environmental Working Group. They'll have the list of dirty dozen for 2020 and 2021 out. So you can go, look at that list, go right to the grocery store, know what foods and produce to buy organic versus ones that are okay to buy conventionally because of point, or, just again, prioritizing those cleaner, healthier foods. But yeah, I want to say thank you. Wow. This conversation has been just like, all I want to do is go out in nature and take a bath and then like rub in the dirt, play, and just like appreciate, I think it comes down to that, just appreciate the nature and essence of food and how it is translated in our body. So
Thank you so much, Molly. That was awesome.
yeah. Well, where can we connect with you? Like, your social medias, where can people connect with you and see what you've got going on?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram. My handle is Indy Cook, INDYYCOOK. That's my business handle as well. And you can find like my email, any contact info on there as well. So
wow.
Instagram is the main way.
Yeah, I love the Instagram, especially with food. You got to see the photo. You got to know.
Yeah, so visual. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a visual. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing your wisdom and your passion for eating healthy and plants and connecting back to the earth. And we'll look forward to having you back. And hopefully you guys go follow Indy and see what's going on next.
Thank you so much, Molly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Molly.
Thank you.
I love Indy's energy and the information she shares because it is so relevant to our culture and the way we are living our lives. We are in a world where we're constantly bombarded with different information and foods and lifestyles and ways of living that ultimately, we need to just take a step back, revert back to nature, simplify things, and just trust in our own knowing. By utilizing those strategies, we can incorporate healthier ways of living, establishing more of a holistic lifestyle, and then also giving back to the community that you live in. I really, really appreciated having Indy on this conversation, and I hope you did too. Let me know what your thoughts are, rate and review this podcast, and stay tuned to Mahalo. Thank you for listening to The Exposed Show. I am your host, Molly Willson, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please rate and review the show and share it with your network to get more people inspired. These conversations expose you to think outside the box and consider alternative ways of living. Ultimately, they're here to build your perspective to create a life of meaning and more. If you want to learn ways to empower yourself through personal development, health and wellness, spirituality, and relationships, you don't want to miss these shows. Subscribe here or check out The Exposed Show on YouTube to stay up to date on what's next. Again, thank you for listening, and I look forward to your feedback. So I'll see you next time.